You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Yeah, that's our normal introduction that we play on the podcast, and that is the great Tony Allen saying that we're live. And we actually are live on this episode. Normally we're not. We pre-record the podcast, but we're actually live. I'm joined by my co-host, Walker Mail on the Locked On Hornets podcast. You are watching Locked On Live. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you explaining to the people that maybe are not familiar that we do have the greatness of Tony Allen's sound on our introduction. It just goes to show exactly how great our podcast is right off the bat.
It's true. Yeah, we try to incorporate all things NBA into Locked On Hornets. But today, we're going to focus on this Hornets Heat playoff game, one of the greatest playoff games, I think, in Charlotte Hornets history. It's Game 5 of their last playoff series in 2016 versus the Miami Heat. You may know this as the Courtney Lee shot game. We're going to watch the second half. We're going to pick up action right after halftime. So, Walker, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and hit play. We'll kind of sync up together so that we're watching this together. If you're
Give me a countdown, and we'll do it. Give me a countdown from 3.
Are we going on play or after play?
So, yeah, let's do a 3, 2, 1, go. Give me a go. Give me a play. I just need one word after you count down.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
To that.
Love it. Perfect. Sync.
I'm going to turn this sound, try to turn it down a little bit more than that. There we go. That way it doesn't completely come over the top of us here. All right, so we're going to pick up action in the second half as Jefferson he was a monster in this series. That he was playing the bench to begin this series, but then the Miami Heat's defense shut down Kemba Walker and Jeremy Lin, the two biggest offensive options, and Steve Clifford was forced to make the lineup change and go to Jefferson in the starting lineup, and it worked in Game 4. They get the win in Game 4, and then now you're seeing a must-win Game 5. They got the win in Game 3, and then got another win in Game 4. So there you go. Now we're in Game 5.
Yeah, we just saw Kemba gamble on a pass, trying to get that to be a turnover for them, and then Goran Dragic scores. And as you get the good with Al Jefferson's offense, I don't know if that's really Al's fault on defense. Doug, what I really want to say is I miss Al Jefferson so badly.
I mean, I miss this entire team. I mean, this is a team that was constructed to win and compete in the playoffs. They acquired Lee in the middle of the season. They've had Marvin Williams for a while. They got Jeremy Lin in free agency as well, a really kind of low bet, high reward kind of deal, bringing in Jeremy Lin, and he was fantastic. Actually provided some help for Kemba Walker for once. And, I had high hopes in this series.
Yeah, it was a good job of Rich Cho to kind of put this team together as it went on, right? I mean, with the Courtney Lee addition, first and foremost, just in the middle of the season. And then they couldn't, they wanted to keep this team together, and it was really a bunch of role players, as we've mentioned a million times on the podcast, right? It's allowing Courtney Lee to walk. It's allowing Jeremy Lin to walk. And it was the smart decision to allow Jeremy Lin and Courtney Lee. But, the bad decisions in hindsight were to pay Marvin Williams quite a bit of money, along with MKG, I believe, already having his contract done. And then, of course, Nick Batum getting the Albatross $26 million contract.
Sure, but Nick Batum, a major factor in this series as well. I mean, he played really well in this one. So you're going to see a lot of him, but he was also limited by injury. I mean, I think if you get full Nick Batum in this series without the injury concerns, the Hornets probably do enough to win this series. Frank Kaminsky from the top, and he was money. He wasn't very money guarding Luol Deng in this series. That was probably a big X factor that a lot of people have forgotten about this, is how much Luol Deng abused Frank Kaminsky on the defensive end. And, it just killed him in those first two games.
This is Frank's rookie year, I believe, right? This is the first year in the league for him.
That's correct. Let me recap this series as we kind of get started here. So Game 1, the Miami Heat won 123-91, blowout win for the Miami Heat. Luol Deng had 31 points. Hassan Whiteside had 11 rebounds. Game 2, not much better for the Hornets, 115-103. This looked like another sweep for the Charlotte Hornets, who previously, as the Charlotte Bobcats, had been swept 4-0 in both of their two playoff appearances, once to the Orlando Magic and once to the Miami Heat led by LeBron James. So it looked like we were heading for another embarrassing sweep. But then in Game 3, things started to change. They get the win 96-80. They turn the tables in Charlotte. And then in Game 4, 89-85 victory. Kemba Walker had 34 in that game. Spencer Hawes led the Hornets with 8 rebounds in Game 4. And they
What
get
a name.
Right. And this was a defensive series. A lot of big scores for Miami, but then we sort of dug down in games 3 through 6, and this was a defensive struggle. But the Hornets now in Game 5 looking for a series lead and then going back to Charlotte with a chance to win if they get this victory.
Yeah, saw a couple of rough shots there with Kemba. And then it was funny to see, like, man, Dwayne Wade he wasn't shooting the threes early in this one. It was Game 7 where he started to hit a couple of threes. But even then, you saw Courtney Lee not want to go out all the way on Dwayne Wade beyond the line because it just wasn't his game. Dwayne Wade still gets to the mid-range and then loses Courtney. Courtney Lee, a good defender. I think we know Courtney Lee is a good defender. But then Dwayne Wade completely loses him in the mid-range. And thank God, at least in this game, Dwayne missed it. It just is funny to me, right? Like Dwayne Wade, this awesome player, but you're like, yeah, go ahead and shoot it from 3 because that's what you needed to do with him. That's how you had to defend him.
Yeah, absolutely. He was 2 of 3 in this series from 3. I don't know. I think he may have made 1 in the regular. Let me look that up. There was some crazy thing where he had not attempted a 3 or something since December of that.
Well, did both of them come in Game 7? Both of the threes from Dwayne Wade, did they both come in Game 7 from him?
I'll look that up.
I could be completely making that up. That's a possibility.
In 2016, he was, or in 2015-16, Dwayne Wade shot 16% from 3. Like, even for him, it was an especially bad year from 3, and he only attempted 0.6 attempts a game in the 2015-16 season. But he hit 2 big ones against the Hornets in this series.
How about Goran Dragic a couple times, taking it to Kemba, just being stronger? This is when Dragic was a lot better than he is now, right? It's funny to see Dragic take it to Kemba the way he did.
Yeah, I mean, you just talk about players that for the Heat that were huge. Lawal Ding, 69% true shooting percentage in here again. I mean, you can see it in this one. I mean, he is just really. Oh, excuse me, that was Dragic on the layup. But you'll see Lawal Ding get plenty of opportunities against Frank Kaminsky matching up in this one. And then also Hassan Whiteside with a 69% true shooting percentage. He was a problem all series that the Hornets had to solve. They couldn't solve it in the first 2 games. Hassan Whiteside was very good in those 2 games. And they had to make some adjustments. And he drew so much attention at the time from really all teams that season. I mean, he was playing really well.
Well, yeah, this is, for people that don't know, I mean, this is the postseason before the salary cap spike that hit a lot of teams, especially hard, like the Hornets, like I just mentioned. And Hassan Whiteside absolutely reaped in the benefits from the salary cap raising to the level that it did because he had a good year this season. This was the kind of guy that, and maybe even local people in Charlotte were paying attention to him because he is from Gastonia. He was playing at the local Y in Charlotte at the Dowd before he even was getting on an NBA court. And the guy is, making $20 million a year after this postseason was done with.
Shout out Dowd Y. Shout out Gastonia, my hometown, the hometown of Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah, that's your crib, dog. I was about to say.
That's right, pride of Gastonia. So Hornets go into this second half with a lead, but they quickly give it up to Miami. They're up 58-57 in this one. Your lineup for the Charlotte Hornets in this series, you've got Kemba Walker at the guard position, Courtney Lee, Al Jefferson, Jeremy Lin, Cody Zeller, Nick Batum, Frank Kaminsky, Marvin Williams, Spencer Hawes, Jeremy Lamb off the bench. He only played in 3 of these games. Troy Daniels, of course, of Miracle After Midnight fame. Anyone who listens to the Locked On Hornets podcast will know all about that game. He played in 4 games in this series, mostly in garbage time.
God, he looks young, doesn't he? I'm sorry. Kemba looked young right there, even if it was just 4 years ago. I don't know why.
Little baby boo.
Yeah, it
There's
just seemed like
a lot of feelings in this game. I mean, when you see Kemba, when you see Cliff, who's now head coach in Orlando, when you see Cliff, when you see Marvin now. Marvin, not a member of the Charlotte Hornets anymore. He goes on to Milwaukee to help them with whatever happens if they get back to playing this season or get some playoffs. He'll be, I think, a major factor in their playoff run. Jeremy Lin's hair, a huge storyline in 2016. He had all kinds of different crazy hairstyles. And I think at one point at thehive.com had done some analysis of what the record was when he had the different hairstyles. I think the Mohawk.
Oh, I want that article. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, I think the Mohawk was the winner in that. A little turnaround by Frank, not very good. Some rebounds, but ultimately goes down to the wall. Yeah, I mean, this was, you got a resurgence of Wade. I think everyone had counted out Dwayne Wade, and Wade really had a good series here to send them to the second round. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, Dwayne really was good in this one. Man, this game, you know what's funny? I actually did not watch this game live. It was right when I started at 7:30 the game, ESPN Charlotte, and I was still trying to get on as much as I possibly could. And I was actually running the board for the Charlotte Knights on this night, and I had to go home and listen to it on the radio. And I remember I was in a drive-through at Arby's listening to the final call. I was about to order, and Courtney Lee is coming up with the shot. And I remember that shot going in as I was about to order whatever the hell I was going to order at Arby's.
Well, I was going to say, what did you order? That's what I want to know. What is your go-to Arby's order?
Well, at the time, they were pubbing those gyros pretty hard, and that's what I got.
Oh,
and so
God.
a couple of those, they were really good.
What is wrong with you? You don't. To me, Arby's is one of those fast food restaurants that I would put in a tier that's like, you can't really go away from the staples. You shouldn't go away from the staples. Like, there's a couple of things that Arby's does well: curly fries, the roast beef sandwiches, but you can't go too far outside of the box when you go to an Arby's.
Oh, man, I think that's exactly the opposite. If you're going to go outside the box at any fast food restaurant, Arby's is the way to go because everything's so high quality there. Underrated as hell. Curly fries are fantastic. You are right about that. I do like the other sandwiches that they have, but I just decided to try. I mean, look, the commercials worked on me.
I'm putting that on a poll. I'm going to do some polls here that in the replies of this live stream. And I'm going to put it on the poll here. Do you go outside of the box when you go to Arby's?
You absolutely can.
I don't think so. To me, that's a trip to the bathroom. That's a foul. 2 shots at the bathroom. 2 shots in the bathroom. 2 sharts in the bathroom.
Speaking of sharts, here's David. What's up, David? How are you doing, man?
Weird. Is this weird? Did I interrupt anything? Clearly I did.
Well, so here's the question that I just put on the poll here in the replies to the live feed on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Hornets and reply to that poll. Here's the question on the table right now as we watch Game 5, Charlotte Hornets, Miami Heat, 2016, one of the most important games in Charlotte Hornets playoff history. David, the question is, when you go to Arby's, do you go outside of the box on your order, or do you stick with the staples?
I'm sorry, you broke up there. I thought you said Arby's.
That's correct. When you go to Arby's.
No, you didn't break up. That's correct. That's exactly what he asked you.
Oh, my God. No, I decline. I decline this question.
So you don't even go to Arby's. You're not ordering anything.
I don't even know where an Arby's is, and I don't want to know at this point.
Well, Walker is disgusting. Walker's disgusting. He said he goes outside of the box when he goes to Arby's, which is just ridiculous.
Oh, it's good stuff.
I mean, they've got good, like, curly fries, right? I think the last Arby's experience I had was at a Arby's, like one of those, like, Arby's / truck stop hybrid gas station type places.
Perfect.
Already not the highest of quality Arby's. I mean, already it's going down.
I don't know.
If that's the last experience, then of course you haven't been back.
David.
Yeah,
guys,
go ahead.
I had to jump in on this game because this was one of the most memorable Hornets games watching for me in recent memory. I watched this entire thing after playing a basketball game and watched it with one of my good friends and just had the best time. There was a small collection of Hornets fans in the building, in the bar watching with us, and I've never high-fived more during a Hornets game with people. It was just exhilarating. So I had to jump in and just relive that with you guys.
Man, I would have high-fived right there if that Nick Batum delicious pass behind the back to Al Jefferson with the knockdown, Jay. That was an amazing play.
I mean, again, this was the most active we saw Nick Batum in the offense. I mean, he was knocking down three-point shots. He was making passes like that to Al Jefferson. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be the best that it got with Nick Batum right here in his time in Charlotte. David, your microphone sounds like maybe we're getting the audio from your computer, so you might want to double check the input settings on Zoom. so we can get those, because I don't want to deny people who are on this live stream right now. I don't want to deny them your sweet, sweet baritones. They're so good. They're so delicious, as Dwayne Wade steps up to the free throw line.
That should fix it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Oh, yes. Now we're in. Okay, as I was saying, Arby's.
Yeah, give us your Now that they're clear, why don't you give us your Arby's takes again?
Just kidding. No, but Doug, to your point, and this is the game that we hung on to for like a year and a half in the Nick Batum discussion, right? We pointed back to kind of this series and the tail end of this and kind of what he was able to do as hopes that he might be able to recover that form. And I mean, as of yet, he is not, but we'll see.
You got you got hope for him. Yeah, certainly. Maybe next year's different.
I mean, what else is there? What else is there at this point?
By the way, before we got on to this, before we made this full screen size, I saw the amount of views on this video, Doug. I don't know how you found this, but I believe the count was at 3 views total for this entire game.
Oh, well, I own this video, and I have,
do you? Okay.
I was hoping, I put it on YouTube unlisted,
Look at that.
and I was hoping that it would just survive long enough that the YouTube NBA gods wouldn't strike it down before we got to do this live stream, but it probably will get eviscerated from the internet. But yeah, this is on my little private stream here.
All right.
Look at we just saw a stat sheet, something that shows up on the stat sheet from a Nick Batum assist to a Cody Zeller dunk that forced a Miami timeout. I mean, that is just something you don't see a lot.
All right, nice graphics.
Trying to pull up the, there we go. Trying to pull up the stats for this game. Yeah, Al Jefferson, a huge factor in this one. He would finish 7 of 14 from the field, 5 rebounds, 14 points, or excuse me, 7 rebounds, 14 points, 2 offensive rebounds. Marvin Williams had 17 in this one. Kemba had 14 in this one. 14, 5, and 5. So an all-around good game, but an inefficient shooting game for Kemba, 4 of 18. And I seem to remember when we discussed this game, David, after it was over, that I think we remarked on the fact that, wait a minute, they just won a playoff game where Kemba shot 22% from the field. Like, that made us very excited going into Game 6.
Yeah, I mean, something that is hard to believe when you look back on it at this point, but I don't know. I mean, I guess fool's gold, where it's so confounding how this went. It's just like, it's so much like that Bucks series that we watched, that they were able to do this in Miami with Kemba not really leading the way, although he hits a 3 right there. As you said that.
Cash, 64-65. This is going to be back and forth, but not a lot of scoring in this game. I'll give you the final. I won't tell you who wins in case you've just been under a rock as a Hornets fan and don't remember this game. But the final score is 90-88. So we're not looking. We're looking at a defensive struggle here.
Oh yeah, the fourth quarter is not going to be pretty to watch.
Have you guys remarked on the sleeves yet? Have we had a sleeves discussion?
What do we think? Buzz City sleeve jerseys. I'm a fan. I'll go ahead and say it. I kind of like.
Okay. Well, I don't like the sleeves on the court, but I do own the Kemba Walker sleeve jersey, and I enjoy it because it's one of the few jerseys that I feel like I can wear, a little bit more regularly. Because I don't have much of an occasion to wear a tank top, so I like it in that sense.
So, David, that was a disgusting take. That was offensive to you to say that I like the Buzz City jerseys that they had with the sleeves.
Well, I do like the Buzz City jerseys. I was just never a fan of the sleeved jerseys, and I'm glad they have basically been erased from existence, Marty McFly style. No one wants to talk about them anymore. However, this was peak year for the sleeve jerseys because the Cleveland Cavaliers, I believe, won their finals against the Warriors in those sleeved jerseys. So a big year for the sleeve jerseys in 2016.
Well, was this the year? Was it the next year that LeBron just ripped it and tore it off out of frustration? The sleeves, he tore it off, and then I think that was the end. All right, LeBron doesn't like them. We're going to move on.
That's
from
right.
Hair. Cody Zeller had a little bit more hair this go around than he does now.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Ouch.
Sorry, Cody. Love you.
Speaking of hair, Spencer Hawes, man bun.
A lot of hair talk in this series. I remember that. And of course, the king right there, Jeremy Lin, right? Such a big hair season for him. The mohawk.
When the last time we really get to see Jeremy Lin healthy and a factor in the NBA, because he would move on to Brooklyn from here. The Hornets would not re-sign him in free agency, and unfortunately, he gets injured, and really we don't know what his future holds.
Well, and yeah, this was the reclamation year for Jeremy Lin, right? As you see those season stats, I mean, almost at 12 a game after, I think, being buried on the bench out in Houston after he had, of course, Linsanity go on in New York. I know he bounced around, I believe, a couple of different teams. He goes to Charlotte. I don't even know the kind of deal he came to Charlotte on. I know it was cheap, but
it was really cheap. I think it was like $1 or $2 million, Doug. You can fact check me on that one.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a cheap deal, and Jeremy Lin had a good season, as you just saw, coming off of the bench.
Yeah, maybe not that low. I just did look up his Brooklyn Nets signing, though. 3 years, $25 million contract coming up in July, a little bit after this series ended. So definitely a good striking while the iron was hot for Jeremy Lin.
Well, and you know what? I wonder, this wouldn't have made the bracket as we were drafting each of the greatest moments, but should we have even mentioned Jeremy Lin's role in that crazy comeback against the Spurs that year in 2016? Do you remember that game? Jeremy Lin was just on fire in the second half. They come down from like 25 points or so. There was a huge deficit. They come back and they beat the San Antonio Spurs, really, again, at the help of Jeremy Lin kind of leading the way. I mean, that's a moment I'll remember in regular season history for this team.
So it was a $4.3 million deal, but it was 2 years, and they used their biannual exception to bring in Lin. And I want to say that it was a team option on that second year, because the Hornets, I think the Hornets would or was it a player option? I'm trying to track that information.
Would
down.
make more sense if it was a player option. You think they would opt in, right? I mean, if he was going for 25 mil, you think they'd opt in at just 2 mil, right? I would have to imagine.
Because it was $2 million.
Yeah,
it was $2 million for
say.
that first year. I'm trying to just get that. Anyway, it was a good contract at the time. It became even better as Jeremy Lin. Maybe he did opt out. Maybe it was a player contract because he opted out, and the Hornets couldn't afford to bring him back.
Yeah, I think that
because they ended up signing.
That's a bad move if the Hornets don't bring him back on an option for $2 million. It can't be a team option.
Let's see. That's why I have you on the show.
Yeah, he
Walker.
opted out.
You're
Yeah,
smart.
he opted out of the Hornets deal for sure.
You know, I remember Spencer Hawes. He would have one just mind-blowingly dumb turnover a game, but he was absolutely one of the best passers on this team.
Well, it's something the Hornets have been missing for years now, is a really good passing big. I mean, right now they've got Hernan Gomez, Zeller, and Biyombo. Those are three centers that you would not associate with great passing. PJ Washington, if they eventually do go small ball center with him, is the one guy that I see is like, oh, he's got some possibility here. He has good awareness and good passing that could turn into great awareness and great passing as the years pile up.
How about here we are talking about PJ Washington playing small ball 5, and here the Hornets have Spencer Hawes and Cody Zeller on the floor at the same time in a playoff game.
Oh yeah, well that was definitely a reaction to what Miami was throwing out. I mean, they were definitely playing small for a majority of their time without Hassan. It was either Hassan or they were playing small.
Yeah. Also, Joe Johnson, by the way, I haven't mentioned anything about him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the big three killer, and then would eventually get him at least a shot to play. I think it was Detroit right after his big 3 days. But man, did he retire maybe? Did he play one more year after this and then he was done? Because Joe Johnson getting a lot of minutes right now.
I want to say yes. It just felt like he played forever. I don't think this was the end of his run. We can obviously look that up, but you're right.
My internet connection's awful, by the way. That's why I don't help the research team whatsoever. I'm not a part of
the
research team as you guys.
Didn't he end up in Detroit? Was his last stop, I believe?
Well, I think it was Detroit. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I know that Detroit, I think, maybe looked at him after his big 3 dominance, where he was clearly an amazing.
Oh, right. You're right.
Speaking of Joe,
ISO
if you're wondering
Joe.
where Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is, he only played 7 games in this season. This is where he started the year hurt, and then he came back and had an amazing 7 games and actually was knocking down 3-point shots. He looked really good. And then got injured again and was out for the rest of the season.
How much better is this team with MKG on the roster?
Well, I certainly don't think they get blown out in the first 2 games. I think they're able to put up a little bit more defensive effort into things. And if he hit well, now here's the factor. Like, are you talking about MKG as we know him for a majority of his career, or are we talking about the MKG that we got for the 7 games where he was 43% from 3? He was hitting corner threes regularly. Like, if we get that MKG, then, yeah, they're damn good. They win this series.
Well, yeah, of course. Let's go realistic and just kind of hypothesize that MKG goes all the way down to, like, I don't know, 34% from 3, and that's actually still decent for him, right? Like, let's just go even below average, but not god-awful like we had seen from him. You know,
can I pause you, Walker, so we can appreciate this Kemba Walker move here to get the contact. He looks behind him very quickly as he's going into the move to draw the contact on Dragic. You know, we talk a lot about Devontae Graham and the level that he has to get to in terms of driving the basketball, getting contact, finishing through contact, getting fouled. I mean, there you see, that's the elite level that Kemba Walker got himself to in 2016 and then improved that as the years go on. That's, you know, I'm confident that Devontae Graham can put in the work. But I think we need to appreciate how far it is from where Devontae is now and where Kemba had developed by this point. Look at those moves. I mean, he gets blocked there, but still, like, the way he was able to maneuver inside was really incredible.
Yeah, so just following up on that ISO Joe, so spent some time in Utah and Houston before exiting after this stop in Miami.
I don't remember him in Houston at all. Dribble handoff was huge to the Hornets offense. I mean, and then a nice little baseline cut by Lynn. Can't make it happen, though. This was a tough defensive team that they're playing in the Miami Heat, Spencer, with that old school jump shot from the free throw line.
It really just feels like the Miami Heat are forever going to be roadblocks for this team and the Hornets. I mean, they do such a good job of just rebuilding and putting contenders on the floor down there in Miami. I mean, this year is no exception, right? Like, it's just going to be so tough for Charlotte to make any headway, but I guess they're trying to do that, kind of rebranding their approach. Miami, man, they're just so tough. My guy Pat down there really seems to know what he's doing.
That's right. You guys are on a first name basis. You see Pat Riley, and instead of saying Coach or Coach Riley, Riles, even, you go Pat for some reason.
It must have been Doug. It must have been during this series when I saw him on the streets of downtown Charlotte in the days prior to social distancing. And Walker, I don't know if you know the story. It's not that great of a story, so why should you? But I bumped into him coming out of his hotel and just I gave him a hi, Pat. How's it going? And he was super friendly. And Doug just took such offense that I went first name on him because he's just another human man I mean, he's just
another human man with multiple NBA championships, but just another human man.
Doug, do you go Mr. Riley in that scenario?
I go Coach.
How do you greet?
I think you go Coach. I mean, he's earned that, right?
To go Coach.
He's earned that.
Oh, yeah. That's a weird thing to me. How about that nasty? Like calling guys coaches without. I mean, he's not my coach, you know.
Exactly.
It's a weird thing for me. I think it's an age thing for me. Like if he's significantly older, I might call him coach. Pat Riley probably gets a coach from me, but James Borrego, I'd go JB.
JB.
Well, no, if JB wins a championship, then he's coach. That's what I'm saying. You earn the coach title. You don't become a coach and then suddenly people call you coach. It's not like military where it's like, or senator, where you know, as soon as you get the title, that's your honorary, I think is the word I'm looking for. But coach, I think, is something that you do out of respect for when a guy has achieved what Pat Riley has achieved. That's what I'm saying. Hell, JB wins JB wins a playoff series. I'm calling him coach. Mr. Coach.
The bar's not set quite as high.
No, not in Charlotte.
Yeah, he wins one playoff series and he's earned that title.
Well, I mean,
Clifford Riley is the GM at that point, Doug. I mean, even if he's not a coach, you still call him coach.
Yeah, totally. Because again, he earned that by being an amazing coach and coaching championship teams. That's what I'm saying. He gets that honor.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
The problem is no one says, "Hey GM" or "Hey general manager." Like it can only be coach.
Well, I'll tell you why.
I'll
tell you why, because we give in this country and maybe across the world, really, or just as humans, we give respect to leaders of men, or leaders of people, I should say. It's 2020.
Sure.
And that's just what we do. It's military, it's politics, and I think it's sports too, where if you are in that leadership position, and to me in sports it's a little bit different, where I think you still have to earn that title. You get the championship, you get the coach title.
Well, next time I will apologize.
Yeah,
Whereas GM, you're just an
as
executive.
coach.
I mean, you're
That's
just
fine.
you're a money counter. Come on. You're a bean
Man.
counter. You're just you're a high up bean counter, but you're just a bean counter.
Man, Jeremy Lin is playing a lot of minutes in this game. I feel like he hasn't been off the court. I'm sure he has as we've been watching here, but it's just amazing to look back and see how much of an impact he had on this team and in this playoff game in particular.
Yeah, I mean, so the big tactical switch in this series happened early on when, oh my gosh.
Oh,
this
here we
is-
go.
by the
There's
way-
the Cody Zeller.
by the way,
that
this
doesn't
is
show
a
up in the
famous-
box score right there.
This is a
Yes,
famous
sir.
rivalry that only Charlotte Hornets fans know about. I mean, Zeller and Whiteside just didn't like each other and would get into these kind of things in every regular season matchup. And Hassan would foul out. Hassan would get tossed. It was Zeller and Whiteside, and also Zeller and Howard would get into it quite a bit. Dwight Howard. Zeller, I've always said Zeller, I think, I have no information, but I speculate that Zeller around the league has a sneak reputation for being a little bit of a dirty player because he's very physical.
Oh, I don't have any doubt about that. Yeah, amongst players like guys like Whiteside and some of the big guys down low. Yeah, he definitely likes to muck it up.
We all know him as this, guy that makes kind of funny tweets every once in a while and gets on radio shows, and he's a funny, genial kind of guy. But I think on the floor, people come into Charlotte knowing that, if Zeller's playing big minutes, they could catch an elbow at some point. Oh yeah, get in there. Get in there, Cliff.
By the way, how about Nick Batum and Marvin Williams bringing this back within one with a couple threes that they hit, like an ugly fourth quarter, but those 2 threes brought them within this situation. Glory days of 2016.
Look at that. Look, Batum.
Wow.
When have we seen that? When have we seen that in the past couple of years? Batum taking the pick and just drawing it up and knocking it down. We just haven't seen
And
that.
then even meat mugging too, man. Yeah.
Oh, man, he was in-
Give
he
that
was-
guy
It's just a completely different look on the guy too. I mean, he wanted that shot. He's aggressive. He's looking for the shot. He's doing everything much more aggressively and with a purpose that you just have not seen in the
Look at
past
that.
2 years. Yeah.
Look at that.
Well,
That's
that-
attitude from
well,
Nick Batum.
hold on.
That's different.
That could be attitude, or that could be the toe issue that would ultimately hobble him. And really, I think it's an injury thing because he was hurting bad in this series, and really,
Yeah, that
unfortunate.
grimace doesn't look very attitudey. I thought it was earlier. That might be a correct statement by you. Yeah, I thought it might be just him. I like Nick
Look at that
Batum with
stat.
attitude better than hurt Nick Batum, but either way, I commend him for his performance.
Look at that stat that just flashed on the screen. The Hornets were second only to the Warriors in most games with 10 or more three-point field goals made. I mean, that was huge. This Hornets team, for the first time, were leaders in three-point makes, and a lot of that due to Kemba Walker's development, but also the acquisition of Lee, and Marvin had a great season this year, and then Jeremy Lin and Nick Batum both knocking down threes. I mean, this team was deadly from outside. Really shifting away from Al Jefferson, shifting away from that low post offense that defined them for many years. And going back real quick to that tactical shift that I was trying to talk about before Zeller and Whiteside got into it. Early in this series, the Miami Heat were doubling Kemba every time he touched the ball. They were blitzing all the Kemba Walker pick and rolls and Jeremy Lin as well. They would try to put both those guys out on the floor, and they would just basically, Miami would leave anyone who was down in the paint alone and force the ball out of Kemba's hands and try to recover. So then they started playing Jefferson more minutes and feeding him the ball to try to pull the Miami Heat defense back and open some things up and give Lee more minutes too. And now, you see the results. Charlotte was back in this series all of a sudden.
By the way, going back to David's point about Miami just being this machine that starts to pump out talent even in places, even from rookies, right? I mean, Josh Richardson getting some real minutes in this one, playing right now along with Justice Winslow, who I know everybody loved coming out of the draft, but even Josh Richardson getting minutes in this time second round pick, if I'm not mistaken, for him, maybe like 40th or something like that. The fact that, both of these guys getting real time, that's what Miami's still doing. Duncan Robinson becomes one of the best shooters in the league. They take a chance on Kendrick Nunn, and he becomes a scorer right out of the gate this season. It's not even like how much he developed. It was right out of the gate. Kendrick Nunn was performing for the Miami Heat. It's what they've done, and it's how Eric Spoelstra, I think, got so much more credit after he won the championships, because he didn't have LeBron and Bosh and Wade on the team. He had old Wade and Josh Richardson and Justice Winslow winning playoff series. And I think that's when we started to respect Spoelstra.
The thing is, you're right, Walker, in that they have been able to develop talent very well. But really, since LeBron left, it's not like they've been 1 year on, 1 year off in terms of playoff appearances. They went to the second round against lost in 7 to the Raptors in this season that we're watching now, and then they would miss the playoffs the next year. They missed the playoffs the first year, 2014-15, after LeBron left, and then they missed it in 2016-17. Then they lost in 5 games to the Sixers in 2017-18, and then missed the playoffs again in 18-19. They're on their way to making the playoffs if there are NBA playoffs to be played. Miami would theoretically be in it, but now it seems like they're talking about reducing the playoffs in some way. I don't know if that means teams or games or what. But
yeah, even that year that you mentioned that they didn't make it, though, after this season, I believe, I think they went on some kind of crazy second half spurt.
Well, my point is that they're not, even though they've been able to develop talent, they have not been a perennial playoff team. And that surprised me when I went and looked that up. I'm like, I just sort of have this memory of Miami always being around in the playoffs, even after LeBron left. And really, they've only made it twice in the past 5 seasons.
Yeah, they've had their rehab years, right? After Shaq was done, they were really bad, and they got Michael Beasley early in the draft because they weren't good. And then LeBron leaves. They've had their rehab moments, even, and Dwayne Wade was a part of all of it.
Yeah, and back to your point, Walker, about them kind of developing some of their younger players, Duncan Robinson in particular, like guys they've taken a look at late in season that they maybe brought up from their G League team. I mean, I think the Hornets are definitely trying to go in that direction these days, right? Like taking a look at McDaniels, trying to find some of these diamonds in the rough that they can actually add and be, real contributors down the line. I mean, I think if you're a Hornets fan, that's what you have to be hoping. That's how they have to build. So hopefully you can see some of the progression like you see in McDaniels this year added onto the roster if we ever get basketball back.
So Ding with the big 3 there. The Hornets a little bit on the ropes, 84-82. And I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say if the Hornets lose this game, they're probably losing in 6. Like the Heat are coming back to Charlotte and taking them down. I mean, the Hornets really needed to keep the momentum in this series.
Yeah, which is not unlike the Hornets losing to the Bucks.
Oh, look at that. Perfect timing, by the way. Perfect timing on that off-ball screen by Zeller and Marvin to get Marvin open for a pull-up jump shot.
And the bouncy 3.
How about Marvin's second half performance? I think that's 3 threes from him in the second half. And, yeah, there you see, 11 of 22. That's probably one of the biggest differences for the Hornets to come out on top.
Wade, 11 of 19 in this game, 58% from the field. He did not attempt a 3 in this game, 3 or 4 from the line. He finished with 25 points to lead all Heat scorers. Might have led all scorers in the game. 5 rebounds, 4 assists. So one of his, again, a callback play. Oh, there he goes again. That man. Can't stop that man.
That's a killer sequence. The fact that the Hornets came back from that, right? So Kemba Walker misses a bunny left-handed layup, and then Dwayne Wade, I believe, comes back and hits that mid-range jumper, a 4-point swing like that in a close game. That could have been a killer. It absolutely could have been.
Lynn, pull up, money. Look at that.
Massive shot.
Really was.
Yeah, the threes really kept the Hornets in this game, obviously. The discrepancy and Miami's, lack of ability to hit the threes. They've only hit 5, I believe, in this game thus far.
So Wade's got
a big discrepancy.
Yeah, Wade's gotten the ball twice now, 2 times in a row, 2 possessions in a row. He gives it up there though to Richardson. Oh, good passing by the Heat, just getting everything. Oh man, I think Wade should have taken that.
Oh yeah, that's the reason, right? Like it was just one pass too many. You got to know who you're passing to.
There you go, Richardson miss. Hornets with an opportunity here with about 1:30 to play, to take the lead. Lynn, unafraid. Didn't make
boy.
it, but unafraid. I mean, he made the last one, so I mean, you know.
I'm not sure if
yeah.
that's the look you want.
It's certainly not the look that
Although-
Steve Clifford wanted.
Man, how about that though, right? Like that's why I love doing these rewatches. It's the forgotten plays that are so huge. That Jeremy Lin 3-pointer, it's huge.
By the way,
It's huge.
you see the double team there to run Ding off the line. Oh my God, blocked by
Oh
Wade.
Lord.
Chase down block
Talk about
by
a
Wade.
chase down block. Jeez.
Oh man.
But they threw the double team at Ding, you know, threw two guys at him to run him off the 3-point line. Again, I just want to stress how hot Ding was in this first round series, and I don't know if any of us expected
Oh, that was a
that to be the
goaltend.
case.
That was a goaltend, right?
Looked like it.
That would have been reviewed. That would have been reviewed, I believe, if we were watching this game
It's a great call.
today.
Tyler Hansborough with like a pencil goatee.
Oh, hands, bro.
Yeah, talk about more hair. That was a weak stash from him.
I mean, it definitely existed.
Oh,
and
God,
then
here we
Lynn
go.
with the foot on the
Speaking of
line.
replays.
Oh, but we can't replay the other one, right? In 2016, they can't replay the goaltend.
Yeah, that's right. That's what David was saying. Yeah, I mean, it goes to show you. That's why I love doing these. Yeah, just huge moments. Jeremy Lin's 3 to keep this within 1.
These boys
You
are
have
tired.
Kimba missing the bunny. Courtney Lee kind of missing the bunny, although it was goaltend. Doesn't get called. Still a 1-point game. The bad turnover, I believe, by Luol Deng, just throwing an errant pass.
Look at this.
Oh my gosh, that is a goaltend.
Oh,
If
Oh,
he
it's
tou-
not.
If he touched it.
Well, yeah. He touched the backboard, so yeah. It's
Oh, okay.
goaltend.
I remember that now. I was like, did he touch it? Did he not touch it? Did he shake? Whatever.
ISO
You
Wade.
got to dunk that. You got to dunk that. See, Lee?
That was the Reggie Miller, Tayshaun Prince dunk block attempt, right? Reggie didn't dunk it. Yeah, the Indiana Pacers Pistons series from back.
Shaded over to Wade. Switch. Deep three. Bad shot.
God, that was a horrible possession
Bad
for Miami.
Thank you.
shot. Well, they shaded over on the pick, so they shaded over to Wade, forced the ball out of his hands, and then quick switch, Kemba versus Richardson. So Richardson, you know, can shoot over Kemba, but that was pretty deep.
I think Nada always likes to bring up the Hornets may have passed on Devin Booker in this draft that got him Frank because of the way Richardson locked him up in a workout with the Hornets. That's what Nada likes to bring up a lot.
Yeah.
That was a nice little play,
Oh,
nice little
nice
design
Kemba
play
step
there to
back.
get
Oh,
Kemba open.
gosh.
Oh, but then
Big
huge
rebound,
offensive
though.
rebound. And then,
That's a big shot.
oh my God, Courtney Lee shot. Incredible. But see, again, offensive rebound and the shot. Comes
Yeah,
out
it's
of
huge.
nowhere for the offensive rebound and then knocks down the shot. Amazing. But just like Alonzo Mourning's shot, still 25 seconds to play.
Just like
Drills
it.
it.
Yeah, Miami had a bunch of mistakes, right? The Luol Deng turnover, the Josh Richardson is
Yeah.
just heave, inexplicable 3, and that's Eric Spoelstra putting in a second-round rookie, leaving him in big time, and decides to just heave one up.
There's D Wade. What's crazy about this game is D Wade announced his retirement right after this game and then played for like 3 more years.
I forgot about moment.
Still going. As soon as we come back, the first celebration, or the second of the third part of the second half of his celebration tour continues.
Wade was
here's
looking
Leaky
for
stuff,
something to
Wade.
happen there on the right side of the floor, and it didn't happen. Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe fumbled a
Oh,
little bit. Look at that
pretty good
defense
D from
by
Marv there.
Marvin. Oh, my gosh.
I can't believe he didn't shoot that.
Yeah,
Oh,
why didn't
he-
Wade go for that?
Is
And
that
he can't
Kimba that
believe
got
it.
a piece of that ball? Did he block a Dragic 3?
Let's see the replay, TNT. I like those jerseys. I really do. I mean, sleeves
Thank
are
you.
sleeves or no
Great.
sleeves. I like those jerseys. They were better
This
than
Miami
better than
jerseys,
the better than the
yuck,
Grays.
Man, I don't
let's
remember.
look at this.
Oh, I think
Let's
he
see
did.
that.
Pass out the
Oh,
draw.
he
Yeah, you got a
definitely did.
piece.
Kemba
That's
blocked.
awesome.
And then Wade just looking for the call.
Oh,
and
man,
did not
he
get
was-
it. Thank you once. For once.
Oh, yeah, that's brutal for him. I mean, for the
Look at how
Miami Heat,
happy he
that's
is.
tough not
Oh
to get
man,
that.
remember that Kimba happy. Clifford always mad.
Mhm.
I'll say this. We started this episode here on the Clifford and Steven Silas shot on the bench. And I really think that
Oh
this
my
team,
God, inbounds. Ooh.
of course, Hornets inbounds, notoriously bad. Have actually improved this year. They've been really good out of those sets.
This is how. Oh,
Well, that's out on.
Might be out on.
No,
well,
should be
one.
out on-
Hits Kimba's
Oh my
feet
God.
there.
well, the thing is, does Nick Batum even pass it on the line? I mean,
Or
does he
Spencer
just a
Hawes.
bounce pass? Does it even hit the line? Is something that you might need to look at.
But I
it
was
was a
saying.
disaster.
I was saying that Clifford and Steven Silas had some of the best facial expressions in Hornets coaching history. I think it does. I don't think it hits the line. I think it gets in. But then it hits Kimba's foot there.
Mhm.
But see, isn't Wade's foot out of bounds before that? I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
Look at Wade's foot.
There's a
Right
lot going
here.
on there.
It hit his leg and is out of bounds.
I don't know. I can't see if it hit his leg though.
Isn't he touching it right there?
Well, I mean maybe, or is that
Ding's
Ding's? Or is that Ding's hand?
I don't think that's on his knee.
It's called. It's like one of those puzzles that you have to like cross your eyes to see. It's like one of those depth puzzles.
An optical illusion? Is that what it is?
That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Walker. See, that's why I have a co-host. Actually, I think I'm the co-host now.
Now, if I have to guess, I would give this to the Hornets.
Yeah, I think I probably would.
You're not biased or anything, dude.
Well, I'm just saying that's what it looks like to me at first blush. There's not too much to overturn it. I don't remember the call they made on the floor.
How Amari, right? Amari Stoudemire on this team.
Oh my
Kind
God!
of a weird one.
Yeah, Mari didn't
I mean,
play in
that
this
bounced
one.
off. He touched it right there. Yeah, that's off Wade.
Breonte Weber, future Charlotte Hornet, was also on this roster.
That rational loves I've ever had for a Hornets player. I love Breonte. I don't. It just he was all motor all the time. I didn't know what he was doing, but I still loved him.
Now they're just checking on the clock.
So they already decided who has it.
And
What's it? Number 9.
yeah, it's
Yep.
definitely the Hornets ball. Show me D Wade upset at that. All right, there he is.
Oh, he knew.
Now all they have
they
to do.
know.
Now all they have to do is inbound it, which they couldn't do. Which they couldn't do the first time. I'm sure if you go back and look at our Twitter, there are plenty of inbounds tweets to be had in 2016. We just always struggled
The
with
thing
it.
is, you got a 7-footer in Hawes throwing it. I mean, in theory, you
Oh
should
my
just
God,
be
that
able
was
to drop
almost
it
a
in
five-
over some
that was almost a
7-footer,
five-
7-footer.
That was almost a
Oh,
5-second
yes.
call, and then they get it into Zeller. Barely. Oh, Spoelstra is out of his mind.
Wanted the
Yeah,
foul.
not happy.
Wanted the foul.
First road playoff win since April 30th, 2002, the original Hornets run. And of course, game 3 was the first playoff win that they had had since 2002, because they had gotten swept both times against while they were the Bobcats, but now the Hornets get the win in game 5.
So here's the question. You look at this. You look at the Nick Batum performance. You look at the performance of Marvin. You've got Kemba. You probably won't be able to retain Lynn. But if you're Michael Jordan, if you're the front office, if you're Rich Cho, you look at this performance down in Miami, even though you didn't win the series a couple of days later. I mean, obviously looking back, it probably wasn't the right thing to kind of charge forward with this group, but it's tough to, it's tough to blame them. I mean, this is the most exciting thing that happens to the Hornets since 2002.
It's one of the most interesting questions, I think, that's kind of evergreen in sports for me. It's, how do we evaluate the performance of a GM when in the moment everybody kind of understands the moves and likes it, but then once it doesn't work, we kill Rich Cho for it. I think the reason I wanted to move on from Cho more than anything, yes, he had some awful trades. Hello, Miles Plumlee, right? But also the draft history was not good for him. He takes a ton of criticism for the Nick Batum contract, and my God, it's awful. There's no doubt about it. It just, at the time, there were a lot of people that were asking to pay Nick Batum the max, and then now people are destroying him for it, saying, yes, you have to be out of here. And it's just, it's kind of, well, it wasn't a good move, even though we liked it at the time. It just goes to show how imperfect of a process this all is and how we measure, how we evaluate general managers. It's
Yeah.
an interesting question to me.
I mean,
I
listen,
don't know how we do it.
as much as we love Marvin Williams and loved his time here, and of course Clifford loved him, thought he was a huge piece of the defensive effort that the Charlotte Hornets could give. But as much as we loved him, I mean, to me, that's the contract that I look back on in 2016, because it was obvious. I mean, you had to ride with Kemba, you had to ride with Batum because he was a factor in this playoff series, and had he been healthy, I think that was on the minds of everyone. It's like, man, if the Hornets have a healthy Nick Batum to run back with, they've got a shot at being a playoff contender next season. So I agree with that. But even at the time, I was skeptical about keeping Marvin Williams. And I just think if they could have found a way to distribute that money between Lynn and Lee somehow, I think the Hornets had a better shot of getting back to the playoffs than they had with Marvin Williams.
What was Lee's contract? Because Lynn getting 25, that makes it tough.
I don't think they were going to be able to touch Lynn. I mean, maybe he really liked it here, but gosh, that was basically his only shot to cash in, wasn't it?
I agree. Yeah, I think so. And so I'd be interested in Courtney Lee's contract, because I forget where he goes to the Knicks, if I'm not mistaken, immediately. And then I'm not exactly sure the kind of contract he got.
Yeah,
11,
he got a
11
4-year deal.
Yeah, they would have had to give him a long-term deal, but it was less than Marvin's. It was 11.
How much was
11,
Courtney Lee's deal, David?
It was 11.2, then 11.7. It was about 12.
$50 million.
Okay.
4 years.
Right, but it's 12 million, and whereas Marvin's was what, 15, 17?
No, I'm hearing you. I just think so. You're talking about bringing and finding a way to keep Lynn and Lee. I just didn't think that was possible, right? You're talking about 15 million for Marvin, and instead giving that money to Lynn and Lee. I mean, clearly just two big figures. And I would have thought the same thing. I was just trying to figure out exactly how much they were getting. In 2016 made everybody high, man. It was Courtney Lee getting double-digit million annually. Same thing with Jeremy Lin. Same thing with Marvin. You just weren't going to be able to do it with 15 mil allocated to Marvin. And, it would have been better for them for sure. But I think at the time, like if you were to rank those players just individually, I'm not even saying that Marvin was the guy you should have brought back, but if you were to rank those players individually, does Marvin come out on top of the totem pole if you were to rank each of those three, or are you going Courtney Lee? Because I actually liked it compared to the other decisions you could have made with that money. I
think Courtney Lee was, if you look at just what they needed, Marvin Williams fit better than Courtney Lee, because, how are you going to fit, Kemba, Lee? I mean, could Lee play small forward, or was Batum wanted to play shooting guard? He didn't want to play small forward, so maybe you were forced to move him in a position, but you ended up doing that anyway. So I just think long-term, Courtney Lee would have been the better option than Marvin Williams, but unfortunately it doesn't go that way. And I'll say this, after this, if you don't know, after this game, the Hornets would go on so they were up 3-2 in the series, but they would lose Game 6 at home, and then it just felt like it was over, and Game 6 wasn't, Game 7 back in Miami. Miami takes care of business. The Miami Heat would go on to a 7-game series against Toronto. They would lose that series. Toronto would go on to the next round. But Bismack Biyombo, a huge factor in Toronto's series victory over the Miami Heat. He led the team in rebounding in the critical games. And then, of course, Biyombo ends up back with the Hornets and all 17 million of him.
How about the postseason performances getting these guys paid? Not only did Bismack Biyombo, he got paid because of the Cleveland series. It was that one where he played well against LeBron, and he got the big contract from Orlando. You see Marvin Williams play well. You see Nick Batum play well in the postseason. They get big money. Not only for the regular season performance, but second half Marvin plays well. He gets the money. Yeah, the postseason performance.
Everybody but Big Al. I mean, that was the sad part about Big Al, is everybody knew it was his swan song in Charlotte after, the All-NBA season when he was a member of the Bobcats and, reviving his career essentially in Charlotte. Well, we all knew it was over. And yet, what was sad about it is that he really was one of the X factors that allowed the Hornets to crawl back into this series. And yet, it was clear to everyone that it was time to move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he actually, it wasn't a crippling contract for the Pacers, but even people criticized them for, he might have made $10 million a year, if I'm not mistaken, with the Indiana Pacers after that, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal with Indiana. But it was a little bit more than I think people thought he would get. And because again, that's how all the contracts were. But yeah, it was funny to see him get that kind of money, and in reality, it was still less than a lot of other people and what they got.
All right, final thoughts.
He signed a 3-year, $30 million deal.
That's what I thought.
Final thoughts, David, as we wrap up this rewatch of one of the more fun games in Hornets playoff history.
Yeah, one of the things I was looking forward to this season is just to see how Kemba Walker would play in meaningful playoff games. He only got 2 chances with that in Charlotte. Didn't exactly carry the team throughout the series that we just watched, and doesn't have to necessarily carry it in Boston. As a matter of fact, probably won't be asked to at this point, but I was curious to see how he would do this year. Hopefully we'll get to see that. I'm not saying that he will not be able to carry a team through the NBA playoffs, but it didn't necessarily happen in Charlotte. That series, if you were going to put your stamp on a franchise, on a series, on your time in town, that felt like the chance to grab it. And the Hornets didn't do it. Kemba didn't have his best stretch of play in that series. So hopefully maybe we'll get to see what he can do in Boston this year if basketball resumes.
Walker.
Yeah, for me, it's the number one thing I like doing when we go through these rewatches. I've mentioned it a couple times down the stretch there. It's the plays you forget about that were so instrumental in the outcome of the game. It's the Jeremy Lin 3. So Kemba Walker misses just a bunny of a layup. Left-handed, alley, free as hell, misses it. Heat come back. Dwayne Wade hits a mid-range jumper, and that's a 4-point swing in a game that tight in the postseason. And then how about Jeremy Lin right off the bat, immediately coming in? I believe it's a 3 off the dribble, just coming into his stance and then just knocking it down. Miami Heat have a couple of bad plays. Josh Richardson, bad 3, bad turnover from Luol Deng. And then we don't get the goaltend with Courtney Lee, which was clearly a goaltend. And the bucket is not rewarded to Charlotte. Just a couple of different things that could have gone wrong for the Hornets. And somehow the Heat are the team that kind of messed it up in that regard. And then Courtney Lee comes up with a huge play down the stretch, which we knew, even offensive rebound, getting it back, hitting the 3. But it's always the plays that lead up to it that are fascinating to me. And shout out to Jeremy Lin for hitting the 3 there to keep it within 1 after a couple of mistakes the Hornets made. Missing bunnies, man. The goaltend doesn't go their way, and Kemba misses that bad left-handed layup.
This playoff game came in a playoffs and in a season that to me represents for the Charlotte Hornets one of the biggest what-ifs in franchise history, just in terms of the season in general, because you'll remember kind of going into this playoffs, they were in a 4-way tie in the Eastern Conference with Atlanta, Miami, and I forget the 4th team that they were tied with. I don't think it was Boston. But they were tied with 4 teams for the 3rd seed. And so the Hornets, because of tiebreakers, I believe it came down to a loss against the Atlanta Hawks in the regular season, they fall to the 6th seed. So if they had home court, maybe they don't get off to such a rough start in the first 2 games. They figure some things out. So there's a big what if there. There's a big what if with Nick Batum. If you get a fully healthy Nick Batum going into that first round series, do they win it? Michael Kidd-Gilchrist being injured for most of the season and then giving us that glimpse of hope for 7 games, that's a huge what if. But this season represented the culmination of the Hornets' strategy for rebuilding this basketball team. It was centered around Kemba Walker, but it was also centered around making bets on players that they felt would have comeback seasons. And they hit on so many. Jeremy Lin, Nick Batum, among them. They were betting low and trying to get high return. And for a brief moment, it worked. And David, when we were doing shows at the time, you and I always talked about how, okay, you can agree or disagree with what the Hornets are doing in terms of building their team, but what you can't do is argue that they don't have a plan. It was clear they had a plan, and just unfortunately in the years that followed, that plan came unraveled because of a series of bad executive moves and bad luck.
Yeah, a lot of big bets that did not pay off and nothing to back it up, right? The development from the younger players wasn't there. And just, you're right, though. There was a plan. Not many people, I don't know if they disagreed with it along the way because it was fun to be in these playoff games, but I think some people did kind of see, doomsday coming, and this was not really a sustainable plan. But hey, it was a good times while it was happening. I think they've maybe learned from some of those mistakes, especially betting so big putting those bad deals out there, regardless of who is getting those deals.
At least Kupchak is saying all the right things in that regard, right? When you ask the question, have we learned from our mistake? It does seem like Mitch Kupchak is saying the right thing. Doug is right to be scared until they actually lock in this offseason and start the next regular season without any moves having been done.
Get out of here, DeMar DeRozan.
Doug is
some hidden Hornets history. Until then, go Hornets, go America. Thanks to my co-hosts, Walker Mail and David Walker, for joining me on this one. We'll see you next time.